Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. Today's a Stashin with Stephanie Day where we have a brand new fat quarter friendly pattern to bring to you that's been inspired by this month's collection that we sent out to our members. And it contained 10 fat quarters, and then they have the option to get additional to turn their bundle into a full kit. It's a super fun club, and I'm really excited about this month's pattern because we are revisiting one of my original patterns. We are going to be making Herringbone Revisited. So Herringbone was a pattern that I developed for my first book, Simple Quilts for the Modern Home. That one used yardage, and so you have to have a collection of mine and get the correct amount, and it's not like an amount that we typically collect like a fat quarter. So sometimes what I like to do is I like to take those older patterns that I just still love and redo all the math so that way they will work with fat quarters. So we're going to use the same overall look of things, but we're going to get a little bit skinnier on the columns so that way we can make it work for fat quarters, and particularly with 15 fat quarters that we typically feature for our Stashin with Stephanie collections that we bring in. So this is a great one if you're trying to bust your stash and you've got something really colorful, or the original version was in shell rummel, which was some really muted grays, charcoals, and pinks. So this would definitely work with different colorways as well, but with this vibrant life that we have this month, I just thought it would look really amazing with a lot of riot of color everywhere, and I was correct. I'm very excited about how this quilt is turning out. So, and it's super easy because we're going to do the majority of it with strip piecing. I know when I was working on this, my husband was like, "Do you need someone to help you?" And I was like, I am literally, as soon as I finish cutting these strip piece units apart, ready to assemble the quilt top. And within a couple hours, I had my quilt top done. So it really goes pretty quickly. It is currently Wednesday morning when I'm filming this. I started sewing this the previous Friday, and I didn't work on it at all over the weekend. So it is very fast one to do, so definitely a fun one to tackle. All right, before we get into the nuts and bolts of the tutorial, I'm going to show you the fabric we're working with this month, and that has been sent off to our members. I also want to tell you a little bit about the club. So what we do is we send out 10 fat quarters to members of the club, and there typically are 15 or 16 that have come in the collection. This month we have 17. So what we've done is they get their 10, and then they get first dibs on getting additional fabric to turn that fat quarter bundle into a full kit. And so they'll get the additional 5 fat quarters that they need to make the quilt top, and then they get the binding and the background fabric in that, and they get discounts on everything. So if you're trying to find a way to continue quilting, continue to bring in new fabrics, this is a great club to be a part of because you don't have to worry about spending full price on things, because you're going to get a discount on your bundle, and then you're going to get a discount on getting the actual the finishing kit to go with it. And you can use that on any additional fabric that you want, so you can get your backing to go with that. You can save on previous collections that we featured with Stashin with Stephanie. And here's the best part, you get access to all of our previous Stashin with Stephanie patterns for free. So if you're trying to bust that stash and you need some inspiration, we have so many patterns. It is dozens of patterns that you can choose from that you get access to for free once you join. And then also you get a discount on my 2 fat quarter books, and we'll send those to you signed, and so you can have lots of inspiration, be quilting for a long time, and just keep pulling from that stash, or when you see something that you really like, you can get additional fabric as well. Now, if you sign up by the end of the month, so the 31st in this month, you will get your first bundle will ship around the 22nd of November. If you wait to sign up until November 1st, then you're going to be waiting until around the 22nd of December to get that shipment notification. The reason for that is we have more than 700 members in this club, which means we are cutting 7,000 fat quarters. They don't come to us like that, and that it takes a couple weeks to get through that and then fold it all and bundle it and get it shipped off to you guys. So we need to know how many we're cutting so that way we can get everything ready to go and get it shipped out to you guys. And we sometimes do sell out of fabric. I think we might this month because this collection is fantastic. And so we want to make sure that everybody has the same chance of getting additional fabric if they choose to. You never have to. And so we always release to our members a day ahead of the rest of our YouTube audience and our email audience. And they get first dibs on all that. And it just wouldn't be fair if we were shipping it out as it came in. So we always explain that really clearly. We explain it also in emails that go out, but we inevitably always end up getting an email or two about it every month. So I just want to make sure that you're really clear. If you want to get your first bundle in November, then make sure you sign up by the 31st of October. All right, let's take a peek at this fabric and then we'll get into the tutorial. All right, so this month we are working with Vibrant Life by Shandra Smith for Clothworks Fabrics. This is a digital print and it is absolutely fantastic. We splurged a little bit on it. It's a little bit more price per yard than normal. So our subscribers this month are getting an even better deal because the fabric was a tad bit more expensive. But it is absolutely gorgeous and you guys are going to love it. This is a fabric that I chose to use for the binding. It has all of the rainbow in it, but a very dark background. And so it is going to just frame that quilt really nicely. This one has a bunch of really soft flowers. It's the background that we're going to be using, and I really like it because it has a lot of dimension to it. Sometimes we use solids just to help keep the price down for our members for those finishing kits, but I really love it when we can have a really nice dimensional solid like this too, because it just adds a little bit of extra oomph when you're putting that quilt top together. This is the same print as the black that we looked at first, but it has a light background, so it makes it look nice and light and airy, but it stands out really well against that background, so we're going to use this in the quilt. This is the same print that we're using for the background, but obviously this one has all the color in it, and it is just absolutely gorgeous. We're going to see this pixelated textured print quite a bit. I love it when they create kind of a blender within the collection because it is just a really great way to make sure that like this yellow matches perfectly with everything else, and you're not getting kind of close. You are exactly where it should be because it was designed to be part of it, but it still is going to help draw your eye to the bigger prints like this one. Here's that same print again in orange. This is one of my favorite prints in the collection. It reminds me of a kaleidoscope when you were looking as a child. And I love how it just sort of mirror images out and the colors are just so bright and vibrant. These next two prints are also absolutely stunning because they have a lot going on and a whole lot of color. I just love how this looks and it looks great strip pieced in the quilt. This, I think, hands down is my favorite print in the entire collection. I love this riot of color. It is just absolutely fantastic. Here's a pixelated print again in a red orange. Here's that kaleidoscope print again, this time in purple and blues and some magentas. It's really stunning. This pixelated print in purple is my toddler's absolute favorite, if purple is her favorite color right now. This one here is a very close second for my favorite print in the collection. I love all the colors and how it's so geometrically intertwined. It's just so fantastic. Here we have a nice electric blue in that pixelated print. Here's that kaleidoscope again in a blue-green. Now we have the pixelated print in a very bright green. And we're going to wrap it up with that kaleidoscope print in a green-yellow. Teeny little bit of orange. All right, so that is Vibrant Life by Shandra Smith for Clothworks. It's gorgeous. It's fantastic. My team, when they were folding this, were like, I can't wait to see what you do with it. So let's go find out. My goal is always to come up with something that sort of lets the fabric live its best life, and I think that it absolutely works with Herringbone Revisited. All right, so we're going to start with some trimming. In order to get that V to come together and create that herringbone pattern, we need to make sure that we're splitting our strips in half, both for the background and for the fat quarter strips, and making sure that they're cut in opposite directions for those angles. So the pattern instructions go over that really clearly, but I also want to show you how I'm doing it, particularly for the background strips. For the fat quarter strips, you just need to make sure they're all right side up and that you split them in half and follow the instructions. It's going to be fine. But I want to make sure that we go over this because it's a little more complicated and also easier at the same time. So let me just show you what I mean here. All right, so I'm going to start here. I've got my strip. This is cut from a width of fabric instead of a fat quarter. So we have two fabrics wrong sides together here. This is just the way it was cut coming off of the bolt. So I'm going to start from my side that has my selvages on it. And if you want, you can rearrange this a little bit so that they're even. I'm not going to do that. I built in some extra wiggle room in the pattern. That way, if things aren't exactly the width they should be, or you get a little off, you're not going to not have enough fabric in order to create the pattern. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to slice this in half. So I'm going to line up. This is also the way you'll do it if you're cutting off pieces from your fat quarter strips. Just you will be doing a single layer and you'll be going in opposite directions. So what I'm doing here is for this one, I want to cut from the bottom left to the top right so that my point is in the bottom left. And I'm lining that 45-degree line of my ruler up with the bottom of that, and that'll create that angle when I cut it. So I'm just going to go ahead and make that slice here. And now I've created that. Now if I wanted the point to be in the top part, then all you would need to do is line it up on the top, and then you would slice that way, and that would do the exact same thing. We're not going to do that here though, because what I did, since I have my wrong sides together, I can then come down here and just give it a snip at the fold, and this is automatically going to give me mirror image so that I have them going in opposite directions when I take that apart. So here I've got my right side up, and then when I flip this so the right side is up, you can see that I have my angles going in opposite directions without having to fuss with what the right side up is. I'm just, you know what, to make it less confusing for you guys, I'm going to go grab some more fat quarter strips and just demo that super quick so you know exactly what we're doing. All right, so now I'm going to show you how to cut the fat quarter strips. And it's similar to what we just did, but you're just going to have to be conscious of how you are moving your ruler around. So the first thing you're going to do is split them into 2 equal piles, and the pattern tells you exactly how many need to be in each pile depending on what size you're making. So we're going to start here. And we're going to go ahead and start by cutting where the point is going to be in the bottom left, just like we did before. So I'm lining it up as far over as I can, and I'm just going to slice off that selvage edge. Now for this next piece, I really just need to position my ruler so that the point is going to be in the upper right like this. Now you could walk around to the other side of the table and slice this off if you want. That might be the easiest way to do it. The other thing that you could do is you could line up on the bottom. That might make it a little bit more ergonomic for you, and just line up on the bottom here, and then make sure we're going to be cutting off the selvage. You can also try flipping everything around, but that might increase your chances of accidentally cutting the wrong angle. But it all just takes just the teeniest little bit of thought and sorting when you're at your cutting stage. And what we're going to have is half of our strips, background and fat quarter, are going to look like this, and the other half are going to be pointing in the opposite direction. And then when these come together, they're going to come together to form a nice point. So not hard, just pay attention. You don't want to cut everything wrong from the start and then be SOL on the rest of it. All right, so the reason why we cut our angle off to start with is we are going to kind of offset these as we strip piece them together. That way we're going to have a nice straight edge going along here, so we could cut nice straight diagonal rows. That'll make more sense as you get a little bit further on in the video tutorial and see what we're doing. But what you need to know is you're wasting a tiny triangle at the beginning instead of a lot of it at the end. So here's how we're going to align this together. We're going to flip everything right sides together, and then you're going to have your point extend about a 1/4 inch past where the top corner of our background strip is. And we are always going to be sewing the background strip underneath of this. So when we put it together, no matter what direction this is facing, we're always going to have our background strip be underneath this. So here's one where the point is going in the other direction, and you can see that it is underneath. So no matter what side you're doing, just make sure that when you're laying everything out, that everything is underneath. And you can see right here that I've got my little point hanging out here, but it creates a nice straight line along here. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to sew our 1/4 inch seam like we normally would, just offset that beginning. So if you've lined everything up correctly, your needle when it comes down should be kind of right where that V is formed from putting your strips offset like that. And then we're just going to stitch down like normal. Now, when you get to the end, your fat quarter piece is going to be a little bit longer than this piece. That is supposed to be that way. That's from the offset from the beginning. Now you can chain piece these, and I recommend that you do because it makes everything go a lot faster. Just go ahead and slide it under like you normally would. Go ahead and let that top point overlap a little bit, just as long as there's a gap in between where the stitches ended on your first strip and where they started on your second. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and press this seam open. I like to get it pressed open first with my fingertips, and then I just keep 3 or 4 fingers down ahead. It kind of finger presses it. And I like to start at the angled end. I find that is easier to work with than the end where it is not at the same length because of that offset. And I do press this offset down. Since I've chain pieced everything, I do have stitching going all the way out to the end here. So I just kind of fold it back along that pressing line. I just find we're not going to use any of that, but it helps it lay a little flatter. It makes it a little easier to deal with as we are sewing our strip piece units together. Once I have stitched down that side, I do go ahead and give it a press from the right side as well. You want to make sure that everything is looking really straight here. That's one of the reasons why I love pressing open, especially for pieces like this, where we're going to be making sure that this is super straight because we want it to cut and be straight. If I were to press it to the side, it might have a tendency to kind of curl up as you go and kind of warp that fabric as you work along it, whereas I find it stays super straight this way. And we can see we've got a nice straight line here, which is exactly what we want. All right, so now we're going to continue that offset strip piecing to get this into sets of 5. And again, we're going to do this twice. We're going to have half where the angle is coming this way, and we're going to have half where the angle is going the other way. Right now, I'm just demonstrating this one for you, but know that the process is the same, just your strips are going to look like this, where they still have the background strip on the bottom, but the angle is going in the other direction. But process exactly the same. So right now, all we're going to do is we're going to flip these guys right sides together. We're going to continue that offset just like we did when we were putting our background strip to here. And we're just going to sew it into sets of 2. Then we're going to add one on to create a set of 3 and sew them together to end up ultimately with a set of 5. And it really is no different than strip piecing anything else, just we have that offset to deal with at the beginning, so we have a nice straight line here that we can use to create nice straight columns when we are piecing our rows together. I tend to, once I'm here at the sewing machine, is when I get everything positioned to get that offset position where I think it should be. Now, if it isn't exactly a 1/4 inch off, it's fine. Remember, there's some wiggle room there, but you want to be as close as you can so you're not losing too much of that first cut. Just like before, your bottom piece is going to end before your top piece. That's fine. Go ahead and just get it lined up, and I just kind of hold it in place with my finger. And then I keep on sewing off the edge. That makes it really easy to chain piece the next one in, and it just makes it go super fast. All right, we're going to press this open again the same way we did the others. Again, you should still be seeing a nice straight line here, and I always start from that angled edge. I find it easier. We're going to press again from the right side to get it nice and flat, and repeat with our other set of 2. All right, we're going to add our odd row to the top here to create a set of 3, and then we can join our halves to finish our strip piecing unit. All right, so now we have our set of 5 offset strip units sewn together, and you can see we have a nice straight line here, which is perfect because our next step is going to be turn it this way, and you can see how this starts to look like the quilt row where they are coming together to form the V. So we're going to cut this next. All right, so this next step might be a little tricky to position. First, I'm going to kind of show you the side here. What we're going to do is we're going to take this 45-degree line on our ruler. You can see a little better if I move it up a little bit. And we're going to line it up with a seam line. And it's totally normal. Like in this case, I have a little bit less available on the side here and a lot more available down here. That's normal. It's fine. I've accounted for that and the amount of these and the sizing that we're going to cut from the strip set unit. So you don't have to worry about that, but you do want to be as close to the edge as you can so that we are wasting as little of this as possible. Now, you can see here, I've got quite a bit of room below, but if I slide the mat up, you can see I'm not making it all the way to the top. Now, the reason why we have 5 in here instead of more than that is because I can cut this with 1 ruler length. So what I need to do is I need to pull this down some and kind of mess with it a little bit. I found that if you get the 45-degree on the bottom of the first one, that background strip, then you're able to reach both the top and the bottom in one cut, which is very important because you don't want to be repositioning this if you don't have to. So now that I have everything where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and cut. And I do my trick of kind of moving my hand up a little bit so I can have a little bit more pressure up higher. I find that helps my ruler from not slipping as much. It's a trick I show for when you're learning to cut in our beginner quilting series, and I find it works really well for here. But experiment a little bit because you don't want a bunch of slippage. Maybe you can do it in one go and that's easier for you. So figure out what works best for you and do that. All right, so now that we have this cut, I'm moving this over for a second, and we're going to square up this edge. So again, I've got to position this fabric so that way I can make one cut across and that it all fits on the mat and within that rotary blade as well. All right, so sometimes things don't turn as well because this is 45-degree angle. It's all on the bias. It can behave a little badly. So if you are moving things about a little bit in order to make sure that you're even on the sides and you're even at 45, that's going to be okay. It won't damage your quilt. I'm just going to go ahead and slice up the top here. We're just going to get rid of that. Now we're going to cut our second length from here as well. You can see I've got quite a bit on the side of the ruler, so there's plenty of room to mess up. I still have my 45-degree line going across that seam, and I'm even exactly with the edge that I've already cut. We don't need to square up any more. All right, so now we've got 2 rows that have been strip pieced so that eventually they'll come together to form a V. The ones that are going in the other angle will meet in coming here. So these, you can see they're all pointing down to the left. The others are going to point down to the right. So my daughter was actually counting all of these. She's learning multiplication in school right now. And I think she calculated that there were something like 400 seams if I would have not strip pieced this. So this makes it go a lot faster. We don't have to cut any funny angles other than that 45-degree to get started. And otherwise it's just nice straight lines. So I'm going to show you how to assemble the rows because it's a little different if you've never put them together on an angle before. And then you'll have everything you need to make this quilt. So this next part we demonstrate to you with a graphic and the pattern. So make sure you grab that over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. It's called Herringbone Revisited. But for you visual learners, I wanted to show it to you as well on camera. So I have 1 row already put together except for the piece that I just sewed here on camera. And if we were to just sew this right sides together, it still needs to be offset just like we were doing earlier, and it kind of makes a V. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So we're going to lay it down like here, and then we're going to put it right sides together like this. And you can see that when that is aligned correctly, they are going in very opposite directions. But when it gets sewn together, you can see that it's going to make a nice straight line there. Now I've done this a lot, so I didn't do this next step, but if this is your first time, it's something that you might want to try. Get a friction gel pen that'll go away with heat, and you're gonna mark the back or the wrong side 1/4 inch away from the edge of that background strip, just like this. And you're gonna mark it right up to the edge. Now, where that mark is where you should be lining everything up. So you can see that the mark is even right where this bottom part is hitting, and same thing on this side. That V should be right where that mark is, and that's where that offset should be placed. If you get it too wide, it's not going to line up right. If you get it too narrow, same deal. So if you need to do that as a visual for the first couple until you get the hang of it, feel free to pin as much as you want. I didn't pin any of mine because, like I said, I've done this a bunch of times, but you certainly can do that. Go ahead and pop a pin here and here, maybe in the middle, just for good measure, but that's up to you. All right, we're gonna press this open, and I'm gonna take really careful precautions here because I don't wanna press any of the seams going the wrong direction. So I'm doing a lot of lifting and pressing as I go through here. And you can see we've got a nice straight line here. There's nothing jogging off. That's exactly what we want it to look like. All right, we are now ready to pin our rows together. So you can see this is what it looks like when we have the opposite angled one coming together. They form this really nice V, and it is really fun. Now, the first time we released this pattern with yardage and didn't redo it for the fat quarter sizing to make the fat quarter work with that with very little waist. We had somebody who got their undies in a big bunch because these were offset. So you can see here that the bottom of the fat quarter is meant to match up with the bottom of the background. That is intentional, and I'm going to show you how to get those points absolutely perfect. But that really irked this one woman very badly. If that really bugs you, you can make them match, and that's fine. It's going to give a different look to it, but this is the way it is supposed to be, where we're going to match up that fat quarter to the background, so that way it creates that offset pattern and really adds a little bit of extra visual interest. But I understand it is your quilt. If you don't want to do it that way, that's fine. So just know that that's the way that's supposed to be. All right, so when I pin these together, it's really nice because the seams, we just have to line them up on top of each other, and we're going to pin where the points are. So these two that are kind of in the middle, where we're not going to match anything, we're not going to worry about those. We're just going to pin where we have seams that come together, and we're going to work that down the row. So when I'm doing this, I'm usually looking from the top. What I want to do is make sure that those seams are aligned on top of each other, and it's really easy to see on one like this because the seams are pressed open and we have fat quarter on one side really bright and bold against a more neutral background, and then I pin on the diagonal in the direction of the seam. I find that that works really well and holds everything in place very well. Now remember, we're not going to worry about these two because nothing matches up there, so it can just kind of be where it wants to be. And we're going to pin where the next seam joins come together. And I'm just going to continue doing that throughout the entire length of the row. All right, we've got that all pinned. We're just gonna sew down like we normally would. All right, we are now done except for pressing open. Again, you wanna take your time here. We have a lot of seams coming together. Make sure you're lifting and pressing as you work your way down that seam. Just want to take a minute to zoom in on these points. You can see how beautifully they come together when you take the time to pin on that diagonal. And just know that this is super intentional for them to be meeting the fat quarter to the background. That's what makes that herringbone pattern. But if that bugs you, feel free to go matchy-matchy, so that way the bottom of your fat quarter strips match. That's fine too if it's just too much for you to have it look like this. But I love how this turned out. It looks so good. So you're going to follow those same steps when you're pinning your rows together as well to assemble your quilt. It's all going to be diagonal seams, so you're just going to pin on that diagonal and get that quilt top together. I'm going to go ahead and film just some video from our overhead camera, because the two last things you're going to do with this quilt are you're going to have to square up the top and bottom, so that way you have a nice straight edge instead of one like this. So you're just going to go across the bottom, pick where your straight edge is, and just even that up, so that way you've got a straight top and bottom. And then every single outside seam of this is going to be on the bias. So I do this on every single quilt that I do before I put it on the long arm. But I highly recommend that you take this step for this quilt. Is I sew 1/8 of an inch stay stitch around the edge. So basically I set my sewing machine up as if I were going to sew a 1/4 inch seam, same stitch length and everything, and then I move that needle as far to the right as possible and just stitch around all the edges. And that will help keep, the same way it keeps the neckline, keep its shape when you're sewing a garment. Also helps keep your quilt square just while it's waiting to be quilted, and then in the process of being quilted on the long arm. Most of mine go straight from the sewing machine to the long arm within a matter of minutes, and I still do that every single time, because when it's on the long arm, it's really easy for things to kind of get out of shape if you are not careful. So that's a step I take on every quilt, and I highly recommend it on this one, and it's super fun. So go check out Stashin with Stephanie if you haven't heard of it. It's our subscription club. We have over 700 members, and our members get 10 fat quarters every month in the mail. They've already received this pack. So if you really love this quilt and this fabric, we have already shipped it out. You're not going to get it if you join because you saw this video. But if you join, you will get a discount on getting a quilt kit. So join first, and then when you log in, our website will know that you're a member, and you will get 20% off any Stashin with Stephanie fabric purchases. So that includes any yardage you want to get for maybe some backing, or to make something bigger, maybe at a border. Or if you have a different project in mind and you just want to get something from it and use that fabric, you can use that as well. And also you get first dibs on getting additional fabric. You can get the quilt kit for this. Again, it's called Herringbone Revisited. And you get all of those patterns for free that are previous Stashin with Stephanie patterns. I'm not sure how many there are. It's dozens, many dozens. And they're all available for you for free, the fat quarter ones that have been part of the Stashin with Stephanie club. And so you can really bust that stash and just have that inspiration. You also get the discount on my books, Fat Quarter Workshop and Fat Quarter Patchwork Quilts. So you could just really have some fun with what you have on hand and save on additional fabric purchases, so you can keep quilting and maybe keep your budget a little bit more intact, which I know we're all trying to do these days. So go check that out. Stashin with Stephanie over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. Again, if you join by the end of October, then your first bundle will ship around the 22nd of November. If you join November 1st or later in the month, you're going to be waiting until December 22nd for that shipment notification. That's so our team has enough time to get everything prepared, and also so that everybody has the same chance to get additional fabric, because sometimes we do sell out. I think that might happen with this fabric because it is absolutely stunning and gorgeous. This Vibrant Life is just absolutely fantastic. It is an example of what digital printing can do, and it's super exciting to have it and work with it. We also have reduced our ordering a little bit going forward, so we're not going to have as much extra fabric. So it's definitely something that you want to be a part of if you enjoy getting beautiful fabrics in the month or in the mail each month, and have that be part of that club. So check it out and grab the pattern and the kit over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. Until next time, happy quilting.